Hello everyone, I'm back again today with my second video in my mini-series regarding the Age of Empire games. I'm looking at the next one, Age of Empires 3. So, the last one, Age of Empires 2, was set in the medieval period during the Intercontinental Wars and events that happened in Europe between different empires. This one takes place sometime later, after the Europeans come over to America, settled in America, and basically the events revolving around the American Civil War and other things, the meeting of the Indians as such, the Battle of Little Bighorn, and the industrialization of America as it progresses and becomes an actual country. And the expansion, which you can see here, Age of Empires 2, Age of Empires 3, sorry, the War Chiefs is a natural progression to that. Looking into the different major tribes of Native Americans and their people in, you know, that the British Europeans meet, and the events that surround them, so forth. So this Age of Empires 3 actually had a bit of a different feel, not just because it's set in a different time period. What we'd seen in Age of Empires single campaigns, in the second game. Sorry, let me start again. What we saw in Age of Empires 2 in the single player campaigns was the fact that it was taken from historical context. It was about historical individuals and the events surrounding them, such as Joan of Arc, Saladin, Frederick the Great, Attila the Hun. So it's very much focused on them and didn't really make up much. The single player in this actually follows more of a linear fictional story. We're introduced to characters in one family and their opposition against this cult, and the cult's desire to gain first of all the Fountain of Youth, and then other artifacts later on. Because the family gets involved against them, they then become targets. It follows a natural progression from the first person in the family to go against them, against this cult, to his son and the granddaughter and her son, which actually follows through into the War Chiefs. So it's a bit interesting. The fact is, these people in this family do interact with other historical figures such as George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, other famous Americans I can't name at the moment because I'm not too aware about American history. Sorry. So yeah, it was much more of a different feel. It didn't feel that you were learning stuff, but there's a line then in your head between what can I consider to be historical content, which I could take as fact, and what is being made up for the story's sake. It's a bit of a two-sided thing. Whilst I did enjoy the Age of Empires 2 thing, where it was teaching you stuff whilst you were gaming, in this sense, actually, I did enjoy the fictional story quite a bit. It took a little while for me to click the fact that they decided to go with making a fictional story and then loads of campaigns to go with that. But yeah, it still worked in a way. They did keep the thing of different civilizations with different benefits. Very much focused at some points on either the European powers or the different American powers that were creating. The other feature they added was a home city. So what country or power you're associated with, you had a city that was kind of your home base. So what would happen is you'd start on a mission. So you pick a campaign, you start from your host city, then you go on part of one of the campaign missions and then come back. And the more points that you racked up in the campaigns, you were either able to kit out your city with different features and such. Really, that was just something aesthetically to improve what your city looked like or make it more individual to your tastes. What was more important was the advancements. So the more points you gained, you were able to request either additional advantages to have from the start. So you could have wagons which could construct immediately a marketplace or a watchtower, or even in the most biggest advancements, you could have the biggest advancements were factory units which produced huge chunks of raw resources for you, or even fortresses which would pop up and could defend your starting settlement from the start. So there was a great amount in the story campaign to kind of make sure that you gain as many points as possible. There's more of a feel that whereas you could just play a standalone story campaign mission in Age of Empires 2, this was much more about progression and advancement, and how you were, building up your own advantages basically beforehand in battle, and such. So yeah, they're a great different feel. Still keeping with each civilization being quite unique, which I quite liked from Age of Empires 2. They carried that over. Still very much in the historical content. The setting changed, which was fantastic. The multiplayer still had great replay value. It was much more about area control. Certain features such as trading huts or Native American tribes that you could ally with to gain more characters and resources. And also train lines and train networks, wagon trails and such. If you built trading posts along those trails, each time a wagon came along on a regular basis, you would gain additional resources and money from it, which made area control a bigger thing with Age of Empires 3. The War Chiefs followed that along. It was actually quite interesting because the feel of the War Chief tribes was quite different to the other civilizations you had with the European powers and such, which more so than the expansion pack for Age of Empires 2. So overall, it's a bit of a toss-up, to be honest. I think Age of Empires 2 was more simplistic, if that makes sense, in the fact how do I explain this? The story player campaign for Age of Empires 3 and the sheer amount of additions, of different advantages you could have, of the different advantages each race had, were much more pronounced in Age of Empires 3. So Age of Empires 2 was more simplistic and more of a joy just to play, in a simple sense that you could pop in to play a story campaign or pop in to play a multiplayer. This one was much more focused on progression and on kind of seizing advantages from the start when you're playing. And that's the thing, because they have great different feels to them, both games can be held up as equally fun to play in their own rights. Right, yeah, so that's just my review of Age of Empires 3. If you guys agreed with my points, or if you think there was other points I didn't really raise that I could have brought up, then please do tell me. I'd love to hear more thoughts from other Age of Empire players, what they think of the games. Yeah, and I shall bring back the next one. I think I shall do Age of Empire Mythologies next. Okay, talk to you soon.